Welcome everybody to another episode on Money Fit MD. I'm just going to go ahead and straight out introduce you to our amazing guest, Dr. Mitra. So guys, just FYI, I have known Dr. Mitra now for about, I don't know, I think she's been in the Wealth Village for about 3 years or so, 3, 4 years, who's counting? But I have to say that it's been such an honor to be a part of your world. Like your wisdom is something that I truly, truly appreciate. And so I'm really excited that you get to share with our women, our audience today about something that I don't think we talk enough about in the physician community. But before we go into that, I just want to say welcome, Dr. Mitra.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
So, Dr. Mitra, tell us a little bit about your practice. So, you are a physician. You've been in practice now for 20 something years, and there was a style of practice. You owned your own practice. Tell us a little bit about that and why you decided that that was how you wanted to practice medicine in the world.
Um, yes. So my practice has changed quite a bit. I'm an eye physician and surgeon. I'm an ophthalmologist, and I started practicing in 2021 initially. Sorry, 2001. Ooh.
2021.
Oh my gosh. So many, many years. And I thought I was going to be in like university-based setting and teaching residents and all of that once I got out of fellowship and residency. And, things changed. My family moved to Sacramento, to California again. And so initially, I spent a couple of years just uh, making sure that the kids were settled because they were like 3-year-old and 5-year-old at the time. And later on, I started practicing with like group practices. And what I found along the way is that it's really important for my view of how I want to treat patients and how I want to take care of patients aligns with the practice that I'm in. And so over time, after quite a few years, after working with group practices, I ended up opening my own, and my own practice is named Capital I Medical Group. And in order to make it financially feasible to have my own practice, especially with ophthalmology, there's so many gadgets, shall we say, that one has to have, especially in a solo practice, that I shared space with an optometry practice, just two separate practices, but in the same location. And so that worked until the opportunity came up for me to start my own. And that took a few years, but gradually I was able to, lease a space and start practicing in, an underserved area where they don't necessarily have access to a lot of physicians or specialists. And a lot of my patients, followed me through time. That way I was able to treat my patients and able to take care of them the way I've always wanted to, and yet have a practice that's thriving.
And you did that for how many years?
So having my own, I opened up, Capital I Medical Group, even if it was not in my solo location, probably in 2013.
2013. Okay.
Yeah.
So now it's been about 13 years.
Mm-hmm.
And over the last year, you've made some decisions to pivot in a different direction when it comes to your clinical practice.
Correct.
Go
So
ahead.
as you know, life continues lifing. And so even though opening up my own location in I think it was about 3 years ago, where it was a solo location, I learned a lot. I learned a lot in having my own business, having employees, especially in California, and just learning all the nuances of having a practice, dealing with insurance, having patients, and being able to serve everyone at a level that's acceptable to me. I think, well, I had a life event, shall we say, or a health event. And so I have been forced to be on medical leave and, taking time to recover from that. And initially, I refused to believe that I would have to shut the doors. It took a while, but I think ultimately knowing that I need to focus on, my recovery and my healing, I had to make the decision that I was going to close my practice.
Is it so hard to make the decision to close your practice?
You're going to make me cry. It's been it was my baby. It was finally, I was practicing my skills and serving my patients the way that I've always wanted to. So it was hard to let that go.
Yeah. And the reason why I asked is that there is maybe someone listening to this episode that is going through and haven't even been able to put words to why they're struggling because no one really gets it, right? So you've been taking care of patients how you have chosen to take care of patients. Was there any other reasons why that was a challenging decision to let go of?
I've been a surgeon for 25 years or so. So even though the person that I am doesn't change, but for so many years we work so hard to get through medical school, get through residency, get through fellowship, and work for so many years and perfecting our skills and thinking that I'm a surgeon. That's how I identify, even when I would put up my page, Facebook page to describe, it's like I, physician and surgeon, was always the first one. And I think just coming to terms with the fact that not practicing ophthalmology or surgery doesn't necessarily change who I am, but it was important for me to get to that conclusion and know that no matter what, I'm always a physician. That doesn't change. I'm always going to be a healer who at this time is healing. I think all of us are healing. And just knowing that, those two are two separate things. One doesn't, if I'm not able to practice surgery or not necessarily have my own practice, doesn't take away with how I choose to serve patients and people. And maybe it's time to help people a different way or on a different level.
Did it take you one day to have that awareness? Like, how long did it take you to come to that conclusion? Because you said it so coherently and so nicely.
Oh,
How
no.
long did it take you? And how long?
I think, when I had my event, that was last July 2025. And it was not necessarily something that was planned. It was more of an emergency. And initially I was definitely fighting it. I mean, I have never sat still for too long. There's always, family members to take care of, the practice, just learning, all of that. And to have to sit still and at that point be dependent on, my daughter to drive me or my son to drive me to my doctor's appointments and be dependent on other people for a period of time. I would say it took at least 3 months for me to not continually say, why me? At least.
At least.
and then probably another 3 months to, okay, this is an event that I cannot change. It has happened. How am I going to, what is the lesson in this, right? What is the lesson in this? What's the purpose? What's the lesson? And how can I come out of this situation, I guess with more wisdom, that's going to help me, take the next step forward. And what is that step?
And what helped you? Was it like journaling? Was it just time? What were some tools that helped you during
So
the season?
journaling, of course, it helps, but really it's been coaches like you. I've had several coaches that have helped me. And, having that connection with other physicians, the group that you have and I have been in for several years, and just even if I didn't show up live, listening to the replays and being aware of everyone goes through different events in their life, that helped me. Connecting with my fellow physicians, connecting with my Wealth Village group, that's your group, and just talking to people that would be able to understand, was the main thing. And really taking time in nature and taking time to journal, yes, and taking time to process.
Okay. And let me ask you, because you brought up the Wealth Village, would you consider yourself a first generation high income earner?
Yes. Yes.
And I'm curious to hear how has that impacted your journey so far in terms of the things you may be responsible for, and how you may have handled or not responded to the season of change that you're in right now.
I think, having my family immigrated from Iran to this country like in 1979 and then once in 1983. So my parents' lives were, and my life was, completely changed. They had different, they were educated, they have been educated, and they had a different lifestyle in Iran as compared with here. So we all went through that transition, but investing money and saving money to invest was a completely different concept. And that was certainly something that I started learning and being aware of when I came to the US really later on, and started asking questions. And of course, having been in physician groups like yours, it really helped me. Now, I always say I haven't been the best student, just because it takes me sometimes a little bit, depending on the stage of life, right? To really pay attention and implement some of the things that you're letting us know about. But the funny thing is that I started passing that on to my kids. So both my kids knew, about, yes, you want to have an IRA account, you want to have an investment account as soon as you start making money. Of course, do as I say, not as I do, maybe. But so I think that helped quite a bit. I think my kids are starting at a different stage right now.
I think when it comes to taking action, many times we are perfectionists, right? And it's easy for us to think about, oh, the things like, I'll give you an example. Even I am in communities where I may take one action that my coach has been talking about for like 2 years. Not that I'm not doing anything else, but there is maybe this specific thing that may just not be the time yet. And I love the saying that when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. And there are times when there may just be micro areas where we're not supposed to do everything at the same time. But I love that you're saying that even what you are doing imperfectly has now made the next generation better positioned than you were when you started, because no one was teaching you about those things.
Yes. Yes. I totally agree. I mean, there are things that I will go back to. Some of the modules and the videos that you have, and just rereading it or re-listening to it, that makes a different kind of sense right now. The actions that I will be taking is different at this point in my life, and knowing that, ultimately trying to come up with a life that I design, that's more intentional, that is all aspects of wealthy living, right? All aspects of it, because it's not just financial, although that makes things a lot easier. And also not ignoring what my body is telling me, where yes, I definitely am much more aware of when I need to replenish my energy. If I need to, take off and just not think about the caregiving part as far as, my parent is concerned. And even if it's 2 hours to go and connect with my friends, or go walk, in nature, and just without anything in my ear, without listening to a podcast, just listening to the sound of the birds, listening to the sound of the water. And that's it, just taking step by step by step. And doing that for myself is, I know when I'm more aware of when I need to do that, which is so different.
I love that. I mean, when you shared, I mean, this is why we talk about arms of wealth, right? That's why we
Mhm.
talk about arms of wealth inside of the wealth village. And for those that like what you guys talking about, many times when people think about wealth, there are two groups of people. There's one group that says money is all there is to wealth, and most of those people actually are empty. They're they don't have they don't embody wealth. They don't feel the fullness that they think that money is going to provide, because they think money is wealth. And then there's a different group, extreme group, that's like wealth is everything, like, oh, rest, breathe, let's just like all align together forever. But then they don't talk about money. And what I love about the Wealth Village is we bring all those two things together, because wealth is money and more. And I love that you're doing that, because that's something that your kids are also going to be learning and modeling from. So, how long have you been in the Wealth Village now? How many years has it been?
I think it's been about 4 years, maybe. Yeah.
Wow.
Yes,
Wow.
it's been
Wow.
4 years. Like I
4 years.
said, not always listening to everything or being ready for it, but yes. And just hearing uh all the wins, or all the challenges and the wins, that goes on in our sister physicians' lives, um, is pretty amazing. Other people caregiving for a parent, other people, trying to figure out how can I decrease my clinical hours so that I can actually travel with my kids, people going through divorce, people going through, figuring out their finances again through a divorce, and how do I do it? How do I retire if I'm single now and I have the responsibility of my kids on my shoulders? I mean, those are major changes to go through. And I can honestly say that being in the Wealth Village really makes me feel like I'm not alone, even though I know I'm not alone, but truly, I'm not alone. And of course, getting the support of um, everyone as we go through these situations, because somebody else has gone through it. Maybe one or two other people have gone through it. So whatever life situation I may be going through may help someone else, and someone else may have, words of wisdom and also support that's going to help me get through mine, which sometimes it seems like, oof, it's not going to happen, but
Wow, I can't believe it's been 4 years. I was thinking 3 years. I'm
Mhm.
curious, what made you join when you did? Like, what was it? How did you find out about me, actually? Do you remember?
I do. So before it was called the Wealth Village, I think you was it MoneyFit MD that
Yeah, money school for badass
Mon
women physicians.
Money
Yes,
School.
yes, yes.
I think the name alone. you know, was very attractive. Yes, so I think we started working together as that was going on because I was curious. Ooh, can someone, help me figure out if I haven't grown up with knowing how to invest and how to, um, you know, save for retirement in a way that's not squirreling money under, in a safe or, in a bank account. That's not gonna help. How can I maximally take advantage of the money that I have? I think when I joined, it was your story of having, paid off your loans in a shorter period of time, and then realizing that there's so much more that's available, and also learning how to have freedom, figuring out how, you took a sabbatical with your family. Was it for a year? Oh my God. I
Yes.
thought, wow, that would be amazing to plan that and be able to do that, have the freedom to do that, and yet still grow in your practice, in your life.
Wow, wow. Do you remember how I'm trying to like go back down memory lane now. Was it in a podcast you found me? Was it in a I don't remember. So you may
Oh,
not remember.
I was, let's see, I may have, I don't know if I knew Dr. Una first or I knew you first. I
Okay.
can't tell. It may have been your podcast.
Yeah, I think so.
And I think I almost joined both groups, Entre MD with Dr. Una and yours around the same time.
Wow.
And yeah, it's hard to know because
Time
once it's
flies.
kind of like buying a red car and then you see the red car everywhere.
Everywhere. Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Wow, time flies. If you can go back and remember, did you have concerns about joining a money program? Were there concerns you had? Was there something that held you back? Or you heard about it and like, I'm in.
I think um I think what I the impression that I got after listening to you and watching, your listening to your podcast was that there was no judgment, right? I don't need to be perfect. This is one space where all that's expected is that we receive the knowledge and we just take steps as we're ready, right? And of course, there's always little, what are your wins? Little, little
That's my
reminders.
job.
Yes. And you do it in such a, I wouldn't say gentle, but in a way gentle. That's like, it's almost like talking to a really good friend, which you are, and feeling like, okay, all I have to do is take this little step. Let's see what happens. And, just medicine has so much, we have so much self-judgment as it is, being in medicine, being in, especially for me as well, being in a male dominated at the time, surgical, field. It's it doesn't have to be perfect, and yet we feel like everything that we do, oh no, 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 if it's not perfect, it's not going to happen. If I'm, putting out a video, it has to be perfect. I'm not going to, let me make sure it's the perfect, words that come out. But that's not a requirement. That's not a requirement for your group. And I felt comfortable that this is the group for me. There were so many other ones out there. There's so many other ones, right? But for me, this felt like you you were my person, and that I would be able to thrive in this group.
And now, 4 years later, are you glad you made that decision?
Oh my gosh. Absolutely. Because I think even though there were a lot of times where I felt like, oh no, no, I don't have anything to contribute because, I'm not working, or, I'm on leave, or, what could people possibly learn from me? You always remind us and remind me that there's there's a wisdom to be shared in our lived experiences. There are things that we go through, each one of us, that is going to help someone else. That, and I think that's the key, where the value that we bring as women physicians to this space and to each other is provides a really safe environment for us to be vulnerable and be able to share our experiences without worrying about judgment. There is no judgment.
There's no judgment. There is
Mm-hmm.
no judgment. I used to think that imperfection was a problem as
Mm-hmm.
well until I realized that it was a superpower. And I did not realize that for a long time. And I think it was really when I started investing in real estate
Mm-hmm.
that I realized that there were many of us that were trying to start real estate, but many did not because they were waiting for a perfect time. We were waiting for a perfect, product or whatever. There was always something that what we call procrastination doesn't always show up as procrastination. It just always looks like there's a better in future, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so when I realized that, wait a minute, I'm just going to go in. I'm just going to buy the property. I'm just going to make the moves. I'm going to stop trying to memorize every lingo. And instead of like giving myself credit for memorizing, I'll give myself credit for taking action.
Yeah.
And that has been the best decision that has even impacted my own finances. It's about leaning into imperfection. So once I figured that out, it became like the overall thread of my life, the imperfection. And in fact, it's funny because like I have siblings, and if you have siblings that are close to you and you love, I love them to pieces. But I've literally had one of my sisters sent me a picture from my Instagram and what like, you are so beautiful, but I don't think these online pictures do you justice. Can you please have a photographer actually take a picture like good light? Because I think you're so much better in person than like online, right? And I'm like, there's a tendency to want to wait until the perfect photographer and the perfect time and the perfect moment. But I think about all of the people that I served before I even took a good picture that I would not have served if I was waiting for the great picture, right? When I
Yeah.
started MoneyFit MD, like the course that literally has helped like hundreds of women physicians to this day. When I started it, I was like, some people talked about like doing professional videos. It was me in Zoom and press record and telling them what has changed my life. Like I went from negative 200K to multiple six figures. This is the path that I took. I want to teach you. And imperfection is a strategy
Yeah.
that works. So thanks for recognizing that and bringing that up because that just reminded me of that whole spiel.
Mm-hmm. No, and I'm so thankful. I'm so thankful for starting when I did. And sometimes, it feels like there is no growth, that I'm not, especially, more recently, it feels like there's so much transition and there's so many obstacles that it feels like, I'm not in quicksand, but just kind of almost like on a treadmill, not really going forward, just on a treadmill in the same exact space. Um, and so knowing that that's not the case, every little or big event, you know, carries with it so many lessons and so much wisdom that comes with processing it, and having someone to help process it, or having the groups that, the community that helps me process it, has been just essential, really. It's been significant in my life.
I love it. So if there's someone that's listening to this and she's like, okay, I'm a first generation wealth builder, I'm a physician, I'm a maybe surgeon. I definitely identify with all of the things she's been talking about. I want to make sure I also have my money in order so that I can give myself options. I want to do what you did. I want to be able to teach my kids about money. I want to be the mentor that I never had. And they're thinking about joining the Wealth Village. What two or maybe three things would you want them to know about the Wealth Village, or whether this is the right space for them or not?
Gosh, I think the event that you have coming up, I think the way to experience it is, number one, you have so many um, uh, complimentary events where people can come in and learn. And I forget the name of it, forgive me, but like they're,
The Wealth of Your Life, the workshops,
that's
all
it.
of
The
that.
workshops are amazing. So that's one way to experience, oh, how is it to be in this workshop and be coached by you, but also be in community with the other physicians. And that gives you a glimpse. Of course, there's the podcast, of course, and another one without necessarily, if people are wondering, hey, should I join or not, is to go to the September event that you have.
Yes, the Wealth of Your Life.
That's right. And I
Yes.
haven't made it to one yet, but I would imagine, if that had been the first event that was available, I had attended it, I would have joined right then, no matter what. So I'm looking forward to doing that this year.
Me too, me too. We're making it happen. We're gonna figure it out to make it happen. And that's the thing. That's why it's so important to be in the right spaces
Yes.
because there are certain unique challenges that people may not understand. It's like if you're trying to take financial recommendation from someone that does not understand that you cannot feed your kids ramen all the time and live like a resident, or the challenges have been like first generation, the sandwich generation, having kids that are growing and responsible for, like, how do we build wealth in the middle of that? Like those are textured like conversations that most financial platforms don't have because it's like, well, just don't do it. Right? And you're like, well, it's not that. Like, well, just don't do it. So wherever you are, there's going to be nuances about your life for everyone that is important. And don't force yourself to stay in places where someone is telling you that it's not important.
Yes.
Because it is important. And the question is not like, how do we, and Dr. Mitra would, attest to this, it's not how do I stay stuck with all the real life circumstances that's causing me to want to stay where I'm at.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like we can acknowledge where that is and how do we now guide you to the next step of your growth, of your finances, of your life, of your next steps, your next level. Does that make sense, Dr. Mitra?
Absolutely, because I think it's important it's important to realize that there's yes and in everything. Yes, I am taking a break or have closed my practice, and there's a way to move forward with how much clinical practice, or if at all, I want to do, whether it's surgical or clinical, and how do I want my life to be in order to have time to travel, to develop deeper relationships with my kids. What are the other things that I've always wanted that I felt like, well, no, I have to take care of the practice. It's like 24/7 going through my mind. That's not the only part of life that we need to focus on. Yes, we studied for so long. Yes, we went to medical school. Yes, we are caregivers at heart because we are women physicians. But, and not but, and there are other parts of life that we need to pay attention to, including ourselves. I think we need to learn to put ourselves as the top of the priority and realize that if we're not okay, if I'm not healthy, if I'm not, mentally, physically, everything healthy and taking care of myself, I can't take care of other parts.
Thanks for sharing that. So one last question for you. What's next for you now? What's this next season of yeses looking like for you?
I have to say I'm doing a lot of reading, learning a lot about what my limiting beliefs have been, what having been an immigrant and child of immigrant parents from two cultures, how has that affected me, and how I can be, more in tune with what my body's telling me, because listening to those cues is super important. And for me, it's making sure that I know that I choose what I want, that I list it out, that I say it, and work towards it. So for me, I will probably work, part-time, maybe a couple of days a week, not in my own practice, but just, kind of per diem, where I don't have to worry about the practice, running a practice. That's taken care of. I still get to have my hands in taking care of patients. And then that allows me time to figure out what I want to do with the rest of it. And caregiving is a big part of my life at the moment with my mom. But knowing that, a few years down the line, of course, I'm focusing on my health, exercise, all of that, just allowing time for other parts of it, and maybe helping other surgeons or other physicians that are going through this major change in their life where they're not quite sure what to do. If I'm not a surgeon, what am I? Kind of a question.
Wow. I mean, you just phrasing that even like that, if I'm not a surgeon, what am I? And I think many people feel that sometimes, general physicians, GI, all of that. But when you're in a field, I tell people that, as a GI doctor, you want bad Capitano away from no longer doing procedures. And there's something about losing something that you love that can be a huge thing. So I love that you are serving people that way. And if there is a surgeon or someone that's listening right now and they're like, I would love to talk to you, where can they find you?
I have my website, and of course, I'm on Instagram. There's Mitra MD3, and there's also my full name, Mitra Ayazifar MD. So there's those two sites, and there's an email to get in touch with me and just kind of, share stories. Certainly,
Fantastic.
I haven't figured out how that's going to progress for sure, but I think that direction is calling my name.
Well, and I think that at every stage of our journey, we're going to always serve the next person that's coming behind us.
Yes.
So we'll make sure that we have a link to your Instagram in the show notes so that you guys can reach out to Dr. Mitra if you want to, learn more about how she may be able to provide support, mentorship, a wise word for you. And of course, if you have questions about the Wealth Village, feel free to reach out to her. You can also check out our website, moneyfitempty.com. We have our list of programs there and how we can help support you on your journey. It has been such a pleasure. And I will share, guys, that earlier today I told her that the amount of joy she has in her face is huge. Her eyes were dancing. She's like, maybe it's a light. I'm like, nope, it's joy. And I can see it. So thank you very much. We're glad you're here. It's an honor to have you in my world. I'm so honored that you've been a part of our community for so many years. I don't take that for granted at all. The best things about my community, the Wealth Village, are the women in there. I brag about our women. I brag about our women, diverse, kind, impact driven, believe in economic power. They're making moves, they're changing the future generations. And your e-shade earlier is testament to that. And I want to say thank you for doing that.
Thank you so much for being in my world and letting me in your circle.
All right, everybody. Thank you very much for listening. If you've enjoyed this, share with at least 2 other people in your life that could benefit from this conversation. And of course, leave us a review on whatever platform you listen to. Thank you and God bless. Bye, everybody.